Hey everyone, welcome back to the Weekly Awakening Podcast. This is your host, Cosmic Colleen, back to another weekly astrology update. This is episode 293. Happy 6 de Mayo. No, I'm looking at my notes right now, and I wrote them yesterday, like what I wanted to talk about on this episode. And I wrote Tuesday, May 5th, Cinco de Mayo. I hope everyone had a nice Cinco de Mayo. And I don't know, went out and enjoyed and spent time with family and was kind and loving to everybody in your community and supported peace, love, and happiness. That's what I'm fucking talking about for Cinco de Mayo. So let's talk about the energy we have had for these past few weeks. So for these past few days, we have Venus in Gemini. That was yesterday morning opposite the moon in Sagittarius. How did you guys feel yesterday, especially my mutable placements? There was this scattered nature, but with the desire to get things done, the energy to get things done for my mutable placements, but just extra scattered. And I have said this now that Uranus is in Gemini, my mutable placements. Yes, we moved out of Saturn, but I don't know, Uranus in Gemini doesn't scare me so much, but it is making a lot of us, especially right now, Geminis and Sagittariuses, with a lot of extra scatteredness but energy to go with it. It just sort of, your mind is racing, your energy's racing, and you're all over the place. But again, the energy, having the energy to do it is very important, because your life can be scattered, and that's a different time when we're in like water signs and things and you don't have the energy. At least we have the energy here. We have that jolt of electricity. So this week we also have Mars in Aries with a square to Jupiter, which began perfecting on Monday, and it perfected 10:08 p.m. Eastern time, and then we felt it yesterday. We're still going to feel it today, and we have been feeling it since Sunday. And Mercury last night in Taurus squared Pluto in Aquarius, which you already know that I was going to say my two were going to be fighting at 6:08 p.m. yesterday. However, it ended up that my older son wanted to go to Matt's house, their dad's house. And so I just had Remy, and we actually had a nice night out in Westchester. I said, let's go out. Obviously, every Mexican restaurant was going to be filled. So we went to Teca in Westchester and just had a nice time sitting outside. It made me wish I lived in Europe, and all I did every day for about 3 hours a day was sit out in a piazza, and eat, drink, be merry, watch people talk. There's something about that life, but don't get me started on that. So also today, and beginning this morning, Wednesday the 6th, Pluto in Aquarius will station retrograde, 11:34 a.m. But that's all we have this week. This weekend isn't going to be super exciting with any major transits, good or bad. And so same with the next week, and then we have a new moon. So I feel like these next week, 2 weeks are going to be relatively calm. Honestly, I think it's been such a crazy shitstorm since March for sure. The end of February, but these next 2 weeks are like, okay, they're blissful. There's nothing big, there's nothing major, and there's nothing with hardships. And I know sometimes we hear retrogrades and we get scared, but often retrogrades, yeah, it brings some uncomfortable and sometimes some painful energy, but in a different way than we expect. But often it's we're taking a second look. We're going back. We're returning back to something in our lives for whatever reason. And unfortunately, sometimes we can't get out of this life without cycles of pain. So we might as well just buckle up and get going with it. Hopefully not too bad of pain for my listeners, though. Now, either way, the outer planets don't ever seem to me to show up. We see it in the collective, but I feel like, it can affect you personally in your birth chart, depending on what your own birth chart looks like. But oftentimes, I feel like these are a little less scarier than the ones, because they're outer planets. So we don't always feel them as personal versus, the Venus, the Mars, the Mercury, those are personal planets. So we feel the things happening much more personal to us. So don't be scared. All right. Let's embrace this Pluto retrograde. Something I want to add about today's episode is a special observation that I've been chewing on all weekend. I've been thinking about. And it's with people born with Saturn in Capricorn, like myself, generations. And this is what I do. I think about astrology all the time. That's how I think about the way I see the world. And I started thinking about this. So chew on it. So people with Saturn in Capricorn are now experiencing a natal transit to Saturn in Aries. So approximately every 7 years, we will experience a natal to our first Saturn square. But this particular Saturn square is coming off and from our Saturn return that everybody had just experienced 7 years ago when Saturn was in Capricorn. So in recent times, these are the years that people have Saturn in Capricorn. So the most recent times were people born 1929 to 1932. Some with this transit actually might still be alive. There might be a good amount of people alive. I was thinking about this, but what's interesting is they will die, right, very soon. I mean, I hope they live to 110, but people at 97, 98, 99 that are alive this long, they are going through this final Saturn square. They made it through the third Saturn return of their life. So it's almost like congratulations to those just passing away at 100, because y'all made it through Saturn's lessons and lived. I doubt you guys are listening to this episode, but lived to tell about it. So I'm guessing if there is so many things, such things as multiple lives, and then after you reach you learned what you meant to learn, and then you go into an eternal heaven of some sort. I'm guessing, the people who have survived all their Saturn returns and lived through the final Saturn square of their life, they're going straight to heaven. Time and life is done right now, going straight to heaven. So that's that. I mean, that's pretty kind of crazy. And I was thinking about that. Like, there's definitely still a good amount of people, not a large amount of people, that are alive right now. Oh, my sister won't stop calling me. She does not get it. She knows I do my podcast, and in the morning I love my chats with my sister, but she does not understand and will just keep calling me. And I've told her this: if I don't answer and I hit decline in the morning, I am recording my podcast. I cannot record this at night. Once you have kids, I am in work. I'm like so burnt out by 6:30, 7 p.m. at night. I can barely even answer my text messages, honestly. So I always do this in the morning. So don't call me in the morning. So. Sorry, she distracted me. So the next people that are also experiencing this, all right, congratulations to the 100-year-olds out there. The next people that are experiencing this are going to be the rest of us, born 1959 to 1962 and 1988 to 1991. That's me. I was born in 1988, and shout out to my other millennials there. So there are still some groups, and we are coming from our Saturn return 7 years ago. We are now experiencing this first Saturn square from our Saturn return, which says we have a square and an opposition to our natal Saturn every 7 years, but 7 to 8 years. But this is our first one that we're experiencing. So these next few years, but particularly these next 6 months, 1 year, we will be experiencing, over the 6 months to the next year, we'll be experiencing one of several things. Okay. We will be told about karma from another, especially if there was a harmful person, place, or thing that you had to break away from. And maybe harmful is a hard word, but just something that was not good for your energy, a lesson, something that it was bad. You had to get out of that. So hearing where life, this is the next one, hearing where life is, or maybe for some reason, hearing about this life, what life is happening for this person, place, or thing. And you might be being brought back into the karma for whatever reason. Maybe it is to clear through your own karma a little more. You had to. Maybe you are part of helping them clear through their karma. You're being told of clearing karma, or you feel it and it brings up some unwanted feelings. Maybe something you haven't felt, years that you've pushed away. And I'm talking things that particularly started around 2017 to 2020. Okay, those are the things. That's when Saturn was in Capricorn. So those things around that time, things that played out, again, whether it's your own karma, and karma we use for all things that come back to us, right? And all things that we're meant to go through and grow through. So karma is not scary, but it's also things that evolve our soul that at the time really aren't easy to go through. So we are hearing about it, experiencing it again. It's being brought up, maybe to clear some karma, but something that played out during your Saturn return is showing up, and not in an easy way, in a friction way. It's not necessarily hard. It just doesn't feel good. You're feeling the feelings. You're, going back here, it's clearing away karma, but at the same time, that has to bring up feelings and unwanted feelings that maybe you haven't felt in years, that you've pushed away. And we often push our feelings away for what? For many different reasons. Our brain, like I talked about in last week's episode with fear. But if the feeling is still there, you got to feel it. Okay, we know this. It goes into our body. It goes into our cells. It can make us sick. It can stay stored in there. So allow the feelings to come up. Feel it to heal it. Cry, let it go. Come back to the moment because it's not shed. You probably really pushed that aside as life got good when you got out of your Saturn return and really just tucked that away and said, let me move forward, which is great because we have to move forward. But sometimes it doesn't come without these residual emotions that stay stuck in our body. So release that shit, my friends. This is a time, too, where you look back and you see the pattern, the change in yourself. Maybe you don't have to come across or hear a thing from that person, place, or thing. You just know you can look back and you're having a lot of self-awareness around what happened during your Saturn return right now. You are looking back and you're seeing at the cycles and you're seeing, wow, I really broke out of that cycle. Or maybe I need to grow a little bit more there because it seems like I'm still kind of trapped in this cycle a little bit. And it could be multiple cycles at once. But and it's usually pretty true that we are on one hand breaking a cycle while on the other hand we're still stuck in one, right? We're multi-layered people, souls, spirits. So both dualities live within us. I mean, I know maybe because I'm so Mercury ruled, immutable ruled, but I know for me, I am often easily breaking out of one cycle where I can't get past the other. So use this time to allow yourself to focus what's coming up, because instead of saying, oh God, why am I thinking about this right now? I don't want to think about this. No, sit with it, allow yourself, because that's how we grow consciously and we don't repeat cycles. But remember, our whole life is going to be about, expanding and contrasting cycles. So there's a little science for you. I want to share now a little bit more with Mars square Jupiter. That was an interesting energy. It kind of felt like a floating energy. I was very cozy, very relaxed. There was a lot going on, even some higher stress stuff, but there was also this loving energy that came around it. And this is a small little story I want to share. So I got into a spiritual belief debate on Monday with my little Taurus sun, Taurus Mercury, Capricorn moon. He's a very fixed placement. He sees things in a certain way. And like I said, he does not like to change his mind on how he sees things. So recently, in the last couple of years, he's become last year mostly, but he's become very into God and in a very traditional sense, which is coming back in the generations. I feel like, as you guys have seen, especially with Saturn and Pisces, now Saturn and Aries, it's like a lot of kids I see with my niece, my nephew online, triggering God. I think there could be much further for, much worse things in someone, as long as it's, within a loving God. I'm okay with that. I think, sure, become obsessed with something that's greater than yourself, as long as it is not to cause others harm. But so I grew up Catholic, very Catholic. I went to Mass every weekend until I was 19. Luckily, my mom was a super liberal Catholic, so she just liked to go there for the prayers, you could say. And that really stuck with me. And much of my Saturn and Capricorn return people, and we have Neptune in Capricorn for those millennials I spoke about, born between 1988 and 1991. So we really broke through this religious way. We all turned our backs on religion around 19, I guess, during the priest scandal, and grew and instantly turned that energy into spirituality. And then as we saw that progress, as Neptune was in, we all turned of that age, and Neptune, that's what's interesting, we all turned of that age, and then Neptune progressed into Pisces. And then we saw, like I had shared on an episode about Neptune and Pisces, we saw the last 15, 16 years being ruled by spirituality and just grow and grow and grow. So, we turned our religious backgrounds into spirituality. And I always say I have many gods that I like to call to. I have a whole army of gods behind me back to. Plus, I do believe that whatever it is, one of my beliefs is it's one energy, for lack of a better word, and all different people, all different religions have a different way of viewing it. And they call it, they have a different way of viewing it. And so Remy, he calls me a hippie all the time. He brought it up the other day. He doesn't like that I can't believe in multiple gods. There's just one God. And I was like, okay, well, I don't believe in that. And then the other day we were driving, we got into a little debate, and he was like, so are you worried about going to hell? And I was like, no, why? And he was like, well, because you have all those multiple God beliefs and you're going to hell. I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. First off, like, you can't tell me and argue with what my belief if I'm allowing you to believe in your belief. And I said, and the number one thing about God, and I'm not going to get into the whole God lecture with you, and my belief, I said, is it's love. It's being a good person. It's prayers. I said, the God, Jesus, everybody there, what they preached was to do the right thing and don't hate on others. And like where religion gets a bad rap is that it was unfortunately used to control people. And that's just what I don't get behind, you know? And we both went back and forth, honestly. And he said some things, I said some things, and we both challenged our beliefs. But in the end, it ended up like we weren't screaming, we weren't mad. We just like, we kind of came to a happy medium, and he got what I was saying finally, like, you know, and I think that I got what he was saying, and we came to a good agreement where he kind of is like, this is what I believe, but like, you know, all good things, all love, and like hopefully a more well-rounded vision of God that I like to place on him instead of the vengeful, hateful God that, you know, we all turned our backs on in the form of religion. And again, I'm okay with religion coming back. I would rather my child be at a Bible study if it's actually like a Bible study of love than out partying in the cornfields. You know, I did both, but I guess that's just the Mercury way. But so this fixed placement boy, I got two of them, and I am ever changing. And the universe gave me these two fixed placement boys to help keep me grounded and teach me what commitment is and staying in something. And I'm here to teach them, you know, to be more open-minded, but with more, but they'll have an automatic more commitment and determination to follow through because they're a fixed placement. And so this square, long story short, this week could have come with like a religious or a spiritual debate, or maybe even within yourself, you were having a spiritual debate or religious debate, and maybe going up against old feelings with Saturn and Aries, being like, oh, I used to think that was bad to do that, but I actually think it's okay to do that. Or really challenging your beliefs. Maybe you had a really strict, you know, religious belief, and you feel like you're defying it by going against it, but you're ready to defy it. You're ready to grow in that way. So those are some of the things that could have come up. So you might also have found this week, it's hard to stop with compulsions, addictions, fantasy, delusions. The mind is so powerful, and with Mars being in the fiery mix, there was a harder energy around stopping these things. Mars adds fire, okay? So it's in a fire, it's in its home sign, the fire sign. So to Saturn and Neptune energy that we've been experiencing since February. And not for nothing, a lot of people I know, shit's popping off, and they're all Libras and Aries. You know, I see some with Cancer and Capricorn, not as much though. I've seen you with Libra and Aries right now with Saturn there popping off. And it doesn't, if you're Libra and Aries, don't get scared, because there are plenty of Libra and Aries and their life is like fine. Nothing is like, there's smaller things, but not horrible things are happening to them, or really tough things are happening to them. Again, it depends on your birth chart. Maybe you already experienced it with other transits. So now you're not getting the harder side, because there's a good side to Saturn, like I said, bringing in new waves of karma and new waves of cycles. But check in on the people, or check in on people that you know that shit's kind of popping off in their life, and find out if they're an Aries or Libra, because that's who I keep seeing. You know, just like we had the Pisces and Virgo a couple years ago had shit popping off. Right now, the harder times are coming to them. But again, it doesn't mean that every Aries and Libra are going to be experiencing it so tough and in such a big way. It just means some of them are, for sure. That's with Saturn there, those are going to be the people that you're going to see with the harder struggles during this time, where the mutable placements, we had our hard struggles the past 3 years. Okay? We grew through that. Life is, but guess what? Isn't a hard struggle a mindset? Yes, there are some things that actually really fucking suck, but sometimes it is a mindset too, and you got to change your mind. But we're not going to go down that rabbit hole because I'm already talking. I'm trying to keep these under 20 minutes. I got one more thing to say collectively that I think is an interesting observation that I have noticed in the culture since Saturn and Neptune ingress into Aries, and then, of course, Uranus in Gemini, is that the smoking culture is hip again. It's insane. I keep seeing it all over now, all over my algorithm, and not with like adults, with unfortunately like 19, 20, 21-year-old kids. So smoking never really left. Yes, it did. A large amount of people totally stopped smoking and did not start smoking vapes. Though I know a lot of people who do smoke vapes. However, this younger generations, they smoke so much freaking vapes. It's crazy. So now, one thing that this is what I'm hearing is that they understand that like vapes aren't even that much better. Okay, so they understand that. So now the rebelliousness is back. So we're going to see a strong rebelliousness in culture, like I talked about with Uranus and Gemini, and then Saturn and Neptune in the sign of Aries. So we're going to see a strong rebelliousness. And right now, smoking has always stood, for being rebelliousness and even back in the day in a big way. Remember Joe Cool smoking the cigarettes? Like that has been in our programming since we were young, that like cigarette smoking was cool. And then all of a sudden everyone's like, whoa, cigarette smoking is not cool. It's really bad. And I was that generation where I remember going into restaurants and they had a smoking section. And I remember my mom smoked, but she didn't smoke while we ate, so we didn't go there. I used to go there in high school, though. And then smoking in the mall, I remember those things. But I also remember, like, everyone losing their mind at the local bar restaurants when they were taking smoking out of restaurants, and especially out of the bars. Like, people were literally losing their mind. That was, like, '07. It was crazy. So now, though, it seems like we have this cigarettes are cool program, and now all of a sudden I started these last like 2 months, I started seeing these kind of joke memes of like someone looking sexy and cool and they're like smoking a cigarette, and it said, honestly, nothing really hits quite like smoking on a hot summer night does. And then it started showing up like being used in classy ways, and now I'm seeing it whole young influencers like writing like it's their face, because everyone just puts their fucking face up there and then writes something like super original, but whatever. They are smoking a cig, like looking like they're straight out of the movie 13 or whatever, Cruel Intentions, maybe because I just talked about that last week. But they're sitting there smoking a cigarette, and it's just like, yeah, I don't have time for this. You guys get what I'm saying. And I'm seeing them all over the place, and I was like, oh my God. The cigarette companies, they won again. They figured out how to market the young people, and now college age. I was just in this week at the salon. I was talking to one of my clients who's in college, and I was discussing this because this is something I also observed and realized over these last couple weeks. And they confirmed that kids are smoking cigarettes in college. And they said the same thing, that this is where I learned this, that they realized that vapes are just as bad. And she literally said that people do think cigs are cooler. And I used to smoke, so no shade. I'm a former smoker. I smoked, other than when I was pregnant, I smoked my entire 20s. And I was pregnant in my 20s. I didn't smoke when I was pregnant, but I did smoke until my Saturn return. I officially quit smoking right at 29. And I used to, and now I don't think about them. I don't crave them, nothing. I don't think about it. But I found myself in the last month, the other day, it was like last week after I started seeing all these memes, I literally said to myself, like, I don't know if I saw someone smoking, but I just caught myself thinking like, oh, that would be nice, just having a cigarette break. Should I go get a cigarette? And I was like, what? What did you just say to yourself, Colleen? Like, what? And I'm like, that's crazy. I have not thought about smoking cigarettes in years. I literally don't miss it, and I can be around it. In fact, I'm more like, ugh, kind of like grossed out. But I was like, I can't believe it. After seeing these like memes a few times, there I am thinking about it. My kids think I'm crazy, but one day they'll be grateful. You guys got to realize how easy it is to be fucking controlled and manipulated by the media in every way, by the news, by social media, by how it's gone. I mean, trust us millennials, we're the beginning of it. So we have been through every phase of controlling us through online media, through news media, and all I do is I see it, how fast it is. Even just thinking about a tune, you're singing a tune. Let's say I start singing Build Me Up Buttercup. And I'm just singing that line, the first line, build me up, buttercup, baby, that line. And I sing it. I guarantee you I go to work, every single person will start singing it. That's how powerful it is. That's how powerful our words are. Sometimes, I like that dirty rap stuff, where they're saying all kinds of horrible things. Like, I don't even need to say it in case there's kids listening to this. I do like that. But then I think to myself, like, holy shit, like, that's going into our brains, that's going into our things. And we have a whole wave of people who now, we've been listening to nothing but fake music with fake intentions of, choosing money over love and drugs over love and this over love and doing horrible things and dirty things, which I'm okay with the dirty things, but you guys get what I'm trying to say here. doing those type of things, and now we see a whole culture that believes that that's based on love. So that's just a little sidetrack, but be careful. And that's why I tell my kids, I mean, I'm not perfect because they're being influenced in every direction, but check in how you're influenced. That's one of the things we can see with Uranus and Gemini with Saturn. How are you being influenced by the media you take in? And I don't just mean social media. I also mean TV media. What are you being told? Like, they have realized long ago how easy it is to program. And when you start paying attention, your mind will be blown. I know half of you listening to this podcast do know, but those of you don't, pay attention how easy it is to convince someone of something. It's crazy, okay? So I try to tell my kids we got to use it for good things. All right, that's all I have. Love you all. Have a great week. Thank you for supporting me. The best way to support this podcast is to rate, review, send out. You guys keep doing that for me, and I'm really grateful. I love you all, and goodbye.